Tenga ta Tenga chu Motala. Tenga chu Tamjila. Bamboo council topa Jaitan, and Hipa council topa ni Bemsi ni Bemsi ni no the Mandupaga chu Tani Oma.
The subject of today's teaching will be very generally, basically everything that is to be known. That is usually subdivided into material appearances and phenomena and that which we term consciousness. So Rinpoche would like to talk about that briefly today. What is it that we would term the material world? Well, it's for the most part all of these material appearances such as rivers, mountains, trees, etc. All of these things within which we do not think that there is a perceiving consciousness. All of these things which are not endowed with such a consciousness. That is what we would summarize under material things or material phenomena. However, even though there is no consciousness within these material things, they still are interconnected, interrelated with each other in various ways. If, for instance, we take the simple example of a table. A table, for the most part, supports all sorts of objects that you put on top of it. For instance, a cup, or a thermos in our case here, or any other material, any other object for that matter. We would clearly be able to agree on the fact that both the table as well as the objects that are supported by the table are free of any consciousness, free of any perceiving consciousness themselves. Yet, both table and the objects upon the table are connected in such a way as to support each other. The table is to support for that which we put on top of it. Let's stick with the example of the cup. The cup is related to the table in such a way as to be supported by the table. So in this way, these unconscious objects, these material objects which have no consciousness, are nevertheless connected to each other in such ways. Similarly, there are also stories back from the olden times in which other examples, other analogies are being used. There's, for instance, the story or the legend that in ancient times, out of the great oceans of the world, from time to time, a wish-fulfilling jewel, a wish-fulfilling gem would appear. And while these two objects, both the ocean as well as the gem, are again inanimate objects free of any consciousness, they're still related in such a way as that it is the ocean that gives rise to the gem. The gem appears out of the ocean. So also in this way, they are interrelated. We could also prove this interrelation by way of a simple experiment. Take two sticks, or two pens for that matter, anything of that sort, and support them against each other in such a way that they keep standing, leaning against each other. If that is properly balanced, they will just keep standing like that. However, if you take one away, the other one will invariably fall over. If you take the other one away, the first one will fall over. So in this way, a single stick or pen or whatever you choose cannot stand in this way by itself. It absolutely depends on the other object being supported against it, so that the two of them can remain standing up. So in this way, we might again ask ourselves, how are they interrelated? They're interrelated in such a way as to support each other. To use another example, imagine a beautiful mountain with its peaks, with its rock outcroppings, which is crevices, etc., and so forth. That mountain is also adorned by all sorts of woods in the lower reaches and high pastures, meadows in the higher reaches, and flowers, etc., etc. So all of these objects again are inanimate, they are free of any perceiving consciousness themselves, yet they are interrelated. But how are they interrelated? It is the mountain that is being adorned by all of these other characteristics. The mountain is basically that which carries the characteristics of having rock outcroppings here, and maybe a beautiful glacier here, and then some woods in the lower reaches and flowers in the meadows up in the higher reaches, etc. And all of these various characteristics, the flowers, the woods, the rocks, and so forth, they are that which adorn the mountain. So the mountain itself is that which carries all of these adornments or characteristics, if you want to call them that, and the characteristics are that which are being supported by that mountain. So in this way, yet again, they are clearly interrelated. To use yet another example, imagine a white conch, such as we use as musical instruments during rituals. On the one hand, it appears as a conch, it has the shape and all the characteristics of a conch. On the other hand, it is white. Otherwise, it wouldn't be called a white conch now, wouldn't it? So it has these two characteristics. One is the shape that makes it clearly recognizable as a conch, and the other is its being white. These are two characteristics which, however, share the same fundamental nature, the same fundamental essence. Even though there are these two characteristics of, on the one hand, the object being a conch, and on the other hand, it being white, these two characteristics which are shared, which come together in the same object, are essentially of the same nature. So much for a few examples of the great many different objects within the inanimate world. Objects which are clearly devoid of any perceiving consciousness whatsoever. That's the one part. Then the other part of that world is that which inhabits the world, which are all the beings, the humans, the animals, etc., and so forth, which clearly are endowed with a consciousness, which are endowed with the mind ability to perceive, etc. Just as all of these inanimate objects are interrelated with each other, also the animate world, all of the beings which are endowed with consciousness or mind, are also related with each other. These relationships are of all different sorts, or manifest themselves in all different sorts of ways. And some beings might have harmful relationships with each other, so as to cause each other harm, pain, etc. And others might have beneficial, positive relationships, so as to cause each other benefit, joy, happiness, etc., and so forth. The reason that some relationships are of a negative sort, of a harmful sort, clearly lies in the previous deeds of these various beings. They have habituated themselves over the course of several lifetimes, or possibly many lifetimes, to cause each other harm for whatever reason, and therefore they experience harm in their relationships with each other. Whereas other beings who have beneficial, joyous relationships with each other have, over the course of previous lifetimes, habituated themselves to have that kind of positive relationship, to practice virtuous deeds, and therefore experience happiness and joyous relationships. Now, occasionally we find ourselves in relationship with other beings, for the most part in that regard, with other human beings, where that other person is not particularly characterized by ourselves as someone that we feel affectionate towards, or someone that we feel aggressive towards. Just a person who's more or less neutral to us. Nevertheless, that person causes us all sorts of harm. We might be shouted at, we might be called names, we might experience even worse than that, whereas we clearly do not remember having done that person any harm, leastways not in this lifetime. This is a clear indication that even though we might not have done anything negative towards that person in this life, we clearly have done so in a previous life. And having done so in a previous life, that negativity, that harm, that pain that we have caused that other person is just now being paid back, so to speak. So in this way, whatever harmful act we have ever committed towards others, definitely the result of that is being experienced, and even be it in a later, future lifetime. What can we do in order to eradicate, in order to purify the source of such harm, the source of such negativity? What we, as Buddhist practitioners, can do is to give rise to loving kindness, friendliness, compassion towards that other being, to practice whatever it is that we practice for the most part, and in this way accumulate merit. And if we practice in this way and do not reply in kind to that negativity which we're confronted with by the other person, then Rinpoche says the cause for that negative experience will for the most part vanish or dissolve by itself.
제일라 제 펜버스에 그 드바텔라 당나로 나무 탐지 냠전 장용 근데 나무들아 나랑 그 보도 부모다 라서바 탐지 당나로 기왕하면게 레도 메랑라 되네 그 냠전 장용
Then we might find ourselves in the company of people, be it our family, our close relatives, our loved ones, or other friends for that matter, with whom we live in a completely harmonious, joyous way. Well, that in turn is a clear indication that also in previous lifetimes we had a harmonious, we had a joyful relationship with each other without causing each other harm and trouble and sorrow. And therefore, as a result of such a positive being together, of such positive deeds, we again experience a positive, a joyous, a peaceful relationship with such people. However that may be, being surrounded by friends and relatives and loved ones and living harmoniously together, invariably the relationship with the one or the other person will come to an end, because all of these relationships are, of course, subject to impermanence. It is not as if any one of us would be able to say for how long we are able to be together with all of these friends and loved ones of ours. It is not as if any one of us could say such and such a person will die at this or that point in time, and we have so and so much time together. Death, for the most part, comes unannounced. Therefore, we have no idea whatsoever how much time is given us to be together with each other, to enjoy each other's company, etc. Therefore, we would be well advised to use that little time that is given us, that uncertain amount of time, to live together in a harmonious way, to study and practice the Dharma together in a harmonious way, and to, generally speaking, to make the very best of whatever time we have. Now all of us who have assembled here, on top of this, enjoy a very special relationship. We have come together here in the presence of our teacher. We request and receive empowerments and instructions from him, so we are all related with our teacher in a teacher-student relationship, as well as being related with each other as being students of the same teacher. That particular relationship, be it that we receive profound instructions together, or that we receive empowerments together, or that we just come together to make aspiration prayers or give rise to the enlightened attitude together, this particular relationship that all of us who are here share with each other, within the Vajrayana tradition, is known as the relationship of Vajrabrothers and sisters.
They Jesus young around the doji cheruin. Then they get an around Ajat, Kirungamete, Yangame, and the song.
Yeah, being together here as Vajrabrothers and sisters does very obviously not mean that everything is just happy and gay. Not at all, far from it. We still experience all sorts of irritation. We occasionally get irritable and impatient and even angry with each other. We might occasionally fight a little bit. However, being together here as such Vajrabrothers and sisters, we should at least make an effort to know that in whichever moment such emotions appear within ourselves, that they are utterly baseless, utterly substanceless, and that there is nothing whatsoever to them. They're just thoughts, nothing else whatsoever. And in this regard, we should at least make an effort not to be overwhelmed by such emotions, and remind ourselves of the fact that it is, after all, our Vajrabrothers and sisters that we're confronting. Now, all of that being the case, occasionally we might find ourselves in a situation where things do not stop with a mere thought, but where we actually let a harsh word escape our mouth. We might shout at someone, and we might greatly scare or shock or even hurt the other person in such a way. Well, having heard about all of these things and knowing about the very nature of all of these things, we should then at least be able, or we should train to become able to find it within ourselves to also follow up with an apology. Whenever we have found ourselves shouting at someone for no particularly good reason and certainly no particularly good result, we should be able then to go to that person, confront that person again and say, sorry, I've been a bit rough, haven't I? And I really like to apologize, and in this way make things good again. Among all of these various relationships, a very special one, if not the most special one, of course, is the relationship between teacher and student. The very reason that we meet our teachers in this life shows clearly that also in previous lifetimes we have had a relationship with that teacher. In previous lifetimes we might have made prayers and aspirations to the effect of meeting that teacher again in future lifetimes. And if in this lifetime we then meet together with that teacher, we come together, we come into the presence of such a teacher, then for the most part we feel very strongly about that. So again, this is a very clear indication that such relationships also endure for several lifetimes and are being resurrected, so to speak, again and again. Also in the biographies of the masters of the past, time and again we read and we hear of such very special relationships between teacher and student. For instance, in the life story of the great master of yogins Milarepa, we can read that when he resolved to learn the Dharma, he started searching for a teacher, and the first teacher whom he encountered, from whom he requested and received instructions, was a teacher of the Mahāti or Dzogchen tradition named Longchenpa. And this teacher taught him freely all the various instructions, which for the most part, for students with the right connection, was a very swift path, which could bring about liberation very swiftly. Alone, for Milarepa, that did not happen. So, after considering what the problem was, this teacher then said to Milarepa, very clearly, we do not have the right sort of connection from past lifetimes. The teacher with whom you are connected from your past lives is the great translator Marpa. He lives at a place called Lodrak, the southern cliff, and you should definitely go there into his presence and meet this teacher. And in the very moment when Milarepa for the very first time heard the name of Marpa, he had his hair stood on end, his eyes filled with tears of devotion, and he had an immediate experience of inseparable bliss and emptiness. And as we know from history, he then went to see Marpa and proceeded from there. The story then continues in regard to Marpa and Milarepa, that apparently Marpa knew, he had some premonition, and he knew that his destined disciple Milarepa was on his way to meet him for the first time. Quite against his usual habit, Marpa instructed his wife, Drime, on that day to make ready a big bottle of beer, and he said, we have that field down there by the road. I will go and till that field today, so prepare some beer and food and provisions for me, and I will go there. So his wife Dharma prepared all of that. Marpa went there. He pretended to till the field a little while he was waiting for his destined disciple Milarepa to appear, and then all of a sudden, of course, Milarepa turned round the corner, never having met Marpa before. Of course, he didn't know how Marpa looked. So as he came upon that person whom he took to be a farmer, he asked him, he said, I'm looking for Marpa, the translator of the southern cliff. Where can I find that master? And Marpa, not giving himself away, said, yeah, I can possibly arrange such a meeting, but while I go and check out if that's possible or not, you please do something for me. Here's some beer, have all of it, enjoy yourself with it, and in the meantime, till that field, to which Milarepa happily agreed. He had all the beer, and then he tilled the field, only in the expectation to be shortly shown into the presence of Marpa. So Milarepa, being overjoyed of being shown into the presence of Marpa shortly, he had all the beer, he completely tilled the fields, which Marpa then later on interpreted as Milarepa being a perfect vessel for receiving all of his instructions and teachings, etc. Before Marpa left Milarepa to the beer and the field, he said to him, well, you get on with this, and I will shortly send someone to fetch you as soon as I have arranged a meeting with Marpa. And as Milarepa then busied himself and was finally finished with the work, then eventually another person turned up who said to him, you may come now, you will now be shown into the presence of Marpa. And he was led to a house, and he was shown into a reception room, at the end of which, on a beautiful seat, there sat that person which he had met beforehand, who, for all intents and purposes, really looked like that farmer that he had met before. And in that moment, while standing at the door of that room and looking around himself to make out where in the gloom this Marpa might be, Milarepa was a little doubtful. Is he the one or is he not?
Ngana chu de che no ngarang lu mo ye som de che la pui ne ma ba lo sa ge te yung ma re yang na chorom ne sama de ti chu de la ma ye ma ne sho yang na ne chorom chu zi ti ne sama de chorom sa ro de de so ta te da wa te la ma do ho ma je wa ne de wa yo wa te da wa ge de wa.
After it eventually became apparent to Milarepa that he was indeed in the presence of Marpa, he prostrated himself, he introduced himself and said to him, Great Master, I am a great sinner. I have done terrible wrong, and I have come here to request from you food, clothing, as well as Dharma teachings. Please accept me. I offer my body, speech, and mind to you. Now Marpa apparently was a rather gruff character, and he growled at Milarepa, saying like, that won't do. If you want food and clothing, well, you can have that from me, but then you go somewhere else to get the Dharma. If you want Dharma, well, then it's your own business to find your own food and clothing. Choose, make up your mind what you want.
I don't know, so Lama. Lama. Tambo, I don't know, Jari, then I look at Samla, then there was on Sowa, on Gawa Chimbo, then Dawa Chong, Lama, Yana, and Mega Lama Yimbatori.
Yeah, such was the first official encounter of Marpa and Milarepa, I forgot to say. Now, Rinpoche says very clearly, when for the first time we meet our destined teacher, the teacher with whom we have that heart connection, then invariably we will have similar experiences. There will be all of that feeling, that joyous experience, etc.
Roma Cheketa, Lama Kumaranta to the Chekete, Gina, and Lama Kumaranta, Saint Tubatange, then get it on Jim Tola, Topa Chapachi, Gine. I think I tell a man Lama inside, Tani intimate in Jargo and those.
Similar such stories we hear and we read in many other biographies. For instance, the all-knowing or omniscient Longchenpa. In his life story, we can read how he studied for many, many years with dozens upon dozens of teachers, receiving empowerments and instructions, etc. Yet that particular spark had never appeared. That particular feeling had never really surfaced until the moment when, in a conversation with others, he heard the name of a master named Kumaraja. And in that moment, he knew that is the teacher I have to see. Into the presence of that teacher I have to go. He definitely knew Kumaraza to be his destined teacher in the moment when he heard his name.
And Kumaraza Konga, Mulumla, Soyan Sakarbo, Mombo, Jimpurne, the Konsala Pap, then Konga Pesha Tamsi Ganga Saga, Kursuma, and the Mulum Jones, Tatela then Marum Japan Zinke, Romachi Yung, Tares, then he can see Longchenpa Pavali.
In turn, the master Kumaraza had a dream before meeting with Longchenpa, and in that dream he encountered many white birds who came to his place and who ate all of his books, all of his Dharma books and instructions. They took all of the pages of his Dharma books away, and Kumaraza in turn knew that to be a sign that his destined student, his disciple who was going to be his lineage holder, would shortly arrive. Regarding the little confusion before, which I did not translate into English, Christoph mistook the word pecha for pesha. Pecha means Dharma book, pesha means money. So he first said in German that the birds ate all the money of Kumaraza, while of course they ate all the Dharma books. And Rinpoche goes into some more detail concerning these various dialects in the Tibetan language. The previous Kala Rinpoche, he was known to be from an area known as Hor. It was a Horpa, and these Horpa people speak a particularly thick dialect, as some of the older ones among us probably do remember. And once there was an occasion when Kala Rinpoche used the word that sounded very much like another one. In Tibetan, Dharma is Chö, and in Tibetan, dog is Chi. But in the language of the Horpas, Chi and Chö sounds very much the same. It's like Chi, something like that. And apparently Kala Rinpoche saw someone coming, and he made the remark, this person, which sounded to the other person who listened to him, here comes a particularly large dog. And everybody was like very confused. Like, well, what are you talking about? Whereas what he meant to say, what he actually said was, here comes a good Dharma practitioner. So in this way, we often get confused with obscure pronunciations of equally obscure or sometimes even very simple words. Yes, so that there's no more mistakes and confusion. Let us not dedicate the merit for the sake of the